NEC Section 250.4a specifies the voltage cutoff for enclosure grounding requirements. This section states that electrical equipment and metal raceways, cable trays, auxiliary gutters, and other metal enclosures for conductors must be grounded as specified in sections 250.118 through 250.169 if any of the following conditions exists within or projecting beyond the outline of a building or structure. Regarding enclosure grounding for 24 volts DC instruments, NEC Section 250.4a doesn't exempt 24 volts DC circuits from enclosure grounding. However, there are exceptions in NEC Section 250.112. Instrument enclosures not accessible to unqualified persons are exempt from enclosure grounding if firstly, the enclosure is isolated from other grounded surfaces, secondly, the malfunction of equipment in the enclosure is not likely to result in a hazard, and thirdly, the enclosure is bonded to the grounding electrode system through the metal raceway or cable tray. Enclosures for Class 2 and Class 3 circuits, which typically include 24 volts DC circuits, do not require enclosure grounding if the conductors are installed in non-metallic enclosures, metal enclosures bonded to the grounding electrode system, or non-metallic raceways bonded to the grounding electrode system. In most cases, 24 volts DC instrument enclosures will require enclosure grounding unless they meet the exceptions in NEC Section 250.112. Consulting with a qualified electrician is recommended to determine the specific grounding requirements for the particular application. Understanding the specific requirements of NEC Section 250.4a and the exceptions listed in NEC Section 250.112 is crucial for ensuring electrical safety. Grounding practices are essential for protecting equipment and personnel from electrical hazards. For instance, let's consider a scenario involving a 24 volts DC sensor mounted within a metallic enclosure on a piece of industrial equipment. If the enclosure is located inside a building, then according to NEC Section 250.4a, the enclosure must be grounded unless an exception applies. Now let's examine some exceptions. Firstly, if the 24 volts DC sensor and its enclosure are only accessible to qualified personnel such as trained technicians, and the enclosure is electrically isolated from other grounded surfaces, and a malfunction of the sensor is unlikely to cause a significant electrical hazard, then the enclosure may be exempt from grounding requirements per NEC Section 250.112g. However, if the enclosure is not isolated, or if a malfunction could present a hazard, it must be grounded. Secondly, the sensor circuit might be classified as a Class 2 or Class 3 circuit. If the wiring for the sensor is run entirely within a non-metallic conduit, then grounding the metallic enclosure is not required. However, if the wiring is in a metallic conduit, the conduit must be properly bonded to the grounding electrode system. The grounding electrode system typically consists of items like ground rods, metal water pipes, and the building's steel structure, all interconnected to provide a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source. Correctly implementing these grounding practices ensures that in the event of a fault, the fault current will safely flow back to the power source, tripping a circuit breaker or fuse and energizing the circuit, thus minimizing the risk of electrical shock or fire. It's important to remember that the NEC provides minimum safety standards. In some cases, more stringent requirements may be necessary based on specific site conditions or industry best practices. Therefore, consulting with a qualified electrical engineer or licensed electrician is crucial for designing and implementing a safe and compliant electrical system. Also, keep in mind that codes and standards like the NEC are updated regularly to reflect new technologies and address emerging safety concerns. Therefore, it is important to stay informed about the latest revisions and interpretations of these codes to ensure ongoing compliance and safety. Now let's look further into Class 2 and Class 3 circuits. These are power-limited circuits, meaning the power source is designed to provide limited voltage and current, reducing the risk of electric shock and fire. Class 2 circuits are generally considered safer than Class 3 circuits, as they have lower voltage and current limits. The specific requirements for Class 2 and Class 3 circuits are detailed in NEC Chapter 9, Tables 11a and 11b. These tables specify the maximum voltage and current levels allowed for each class of circuit based on the power source characteristics. Common examples of Class 2 circuits include doorbell wiring, thermostat wiring, and low-voltage lighting systems. Class 3 circuits are often used for applications requiring slightly higher power levels, such as some types of control circuits and remote control systems. Even though Class 2 and Class 3 circuits are inherently safer than standard power circuits, it's still crucial to follow proper wiring and installation practices. This includes using the correct type and size of wire, properly terminating connections, and protecting the wiring from physical damage. When working with Class 2 and Class 3 circuits, it is also important to use listed or labeled power supplies that meet the requirements of UL 1310 for Class 2 power units or UL 1012 for Class 3 power units. These power supplies are designed to limit the voltage and current output to safe levels even under fault conditions. To further clarify the application of these rules, consider a scenario where multiple 24 volts DC sensors are installed in an industrial control panel. The control panel is located within a manufacturing facility and is accessible only to qualified personnel. The sensors are powered by a Class 2 power supply. The wiring for the sensors is run within the control panel using non-metallic wire ducts. In this scenario, because the sensors are powered by a Class 2 power supply and the wiring is run in non-metallic ducts, the metal enclosures of the sensors do not need to be grounded, per NEC Section 250.112F. However, if the sensor wiring were run in metallic conduit within the control panel, the metallic conduit would need to be properly bonded to the control panel's grounding bus bar, which is then connected to the built-in grounding electrode system. This bonding ensures a low impedance path for fault current in case of a short circuit within the conduit. In another scenario, consider a 24 volts DC control system for a robotic arm used in a welding application. The control system is housed in a metal enclosure that is located outside the building. In this case, NEC Section 250.4 requires the enclosure to be grounded, as it is located outside the building. Even if the control system uses a Class 2 power supply, the enclosure must still be grounded to provide a safe path for fault current. The grounding conductor should be sized according to NEC Table 250.122, based on the rating of the circuit breaker or fuse protecting the control system. In addition to the NEC requirements, it's also important to consider any specific requirements or recommendations from the equipment manufacturer. Many manufacturers provide detailed instructions on grounding and wiring their equipment, and these instructions should always be followed. Furthermore, some industries have their own specific grounding standards or guidelines. For example, the petrochemical industry often follows the recommendations of APIRP 545, recommended practice for electrical installations in petroleum and chemical processing facilities. This recommended practice provides detailed guidance on grounding and bonding for electrical equipment in hazardous locations. Hazardous locations are areas where flammable gases, vapors, or dust may be present, creating a risk of explosion or fire. In these locations, grounding and bonding are even more critical, as they help to prevent the accumulation of static electricity, which could ignite the flammable atmosphere. The NEC provides specific requirements for grounding and bonding in hazardous locations in Articles 500 through 516. These articles classify hazardous locations based on the type and likelihood of the hazardous material being present. They also specify the types of wiring methods and equipment that are permitted in each class of hazardous location. When working in hazardous locations, it is essential to have a thorough understanding of the NEC requirements and to follow all applicable safety procedures. This includes wearing appropriate personal protective equipment, such as flame-resistant clothing and safety glasses, and using properly rated electrical equipment. Furthermore, it's important to remember that grounding is not the same as bonding. Grounding refers to connecting electrical equipment to the earth, while bonding refers to connecting different metallic parts of an electrical system together to create an electrically conductive path. Both grounding and bonding are essential for electrical safety, but they serve different purposes. Grounding provides a path for fault current to return to the source, while bonding minimizes voltage differences between different metallic parts of the system, reducing the risk of electric shock. To ensure proper grounding and bonding, it is important to use the correct types of connectors and fittings. These connectors and fittings should be listed for grounding and bonding purposes and should be installed according to the manufacturer's instructions. Furthermore, all grounding and bonding connections should be properly tightened and protected from corrosion. Corrosion can significantly increase the resistance of a grounding or bonding connection, reducing its effectiveness. To prevent corrosion, connections should be coated with an antioxidant compound and protected from moisture. Finally, it is important to periodically inspect and test grounding and bonding systems to ensure that they are functioning properly. Grounding and bonding connections can loosen or corrode over time, reducing their effectiveness. Regular inspections and testing can help to identify and correct any problems before they lead to a safety hazard. Grounding electrode testing should be performed using calibrated equipment and by qualified personnel. The results of the testing should be documented and kept on file for future reference. Understanding grounding and bonding is a crucial aspect of electrical safety. By following the NEC requirements and industry best practices and consulting with qualified professionals, you can help to ensure a safe and reliable electrical system.